Welcome to the Mobile Monger podcast, where we go behind the scenes in the cheese world to chat with the people making, selling, or distributing your favorite specialty food products. I'm your host, Janae Muha, certified cheese professional, longtime cheesemonger, and producer advocate. Tyson Danilson has helped inform the cheese industry in Seattle for the last decade or more. From working in restaurants to driving the cheese truck, and now owning his own food brokerage, his expertise has guided producers to new avenues of business in many levels. Take a listen as we walk through his history in food and what he's doing now.
My name's Tyson, and I am part of a company called Cascade Direct. We're specialty food brokers. I say we, it's a small firm. It's me, and I'm married to Sarah, and she also works with me. And so we're a mom and pop shop, and it's a pretty fun deal. And I've been in cheese for a while now. One of the cool things about cheese, right, is like people like were either born into working in cheese or got there kind of tangentially. And either way, you probably are kind of weird and have a cool story about how you ended up there, right? Like, it's kind of fun like that. So, yeah, I've worked in cheese. I came into it through the restaurant side of things. I was cutting and serving cheese and all of that. Actually, I was living in Bellingham, Washington, and I was trying to figure out how I could go to art school basically forever. Yeah.
The dream, right?
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, what if I just like worked in, mixed media, large format photography, and then found some way to stay, housed while I was doing it. And I went to a career fair on campus at the technical school in Bellingham, and the culinary arts department was there. And I said, okay. And so I talked to them, and I'm growing up. I mean, I was around not like foodie culture, but like my mom baked the bread that we ate for sandwiches and made the jam. And my parents, like, they're cute old people now, but they're like the date night. It was often like cooking together and yeah, those kinds of things. So the food bit resonated with me, and I actually I went to the technical school and got a degree in baking and pastry work, and it was pretty cool and seemed like a good idea at the time, which is sort of a theme in my career. So I did culinary school, and I was kind of pursuing other studies and working at a bakery overnight and going to school during the day, and then working in a big hotel that had a pastry kitchen, and we did weddings and wedding cakes and all the sort of grand pastry type of things. And so I worked for the pastry chef and did the baking and supported her in that work. And I think somebody got hit by a bus or went to jail, or I don't remember why. Like
the restaurant life,
Yeah. It was someone who over on like the saute station, like didn't make it into work that day. And it was very much the classic conversation. Like my buddy in the restaurant was like, "Hey Tyson, like, do you want to stay and work the double and just cook with us tonight?" And I'm like, "Well, why not?" So I started cooking and banging pans with the guys, and turns out that was really fun. And there was an opportunity to do a lot of the things that I was excited about doing, just in this different kind of environment. So I just I got super excited about it. And was working with a fun group of people. There's a lot of overlap, I think, personality wise, for the people I was excited about hanging out with in the art lab. And, the conversations around the literature that everyone was interested in and the music that there was a lot of, Ginsberg and Tom Waits going on our little line. And it was a fun space, and, it really resonated with me. So, and when you're 20 years old, you can keep, it's funny when you're 20, you can bang pans, you can move fast, and you never really get stressed out about anything. Right. And so, I really just got into it and got distracted by it. And we were, it was a fun community of people that were cooking. We were all working together like 5 or 6 days a week, and then going to the breakfast on our day off and going to the sauna and going to the used bookstore and like buying a used copy of Kitchen Confidential, like at the like used bookstore in downtown Bellingham, and here's an instruction manual for life. Let's do all this stuff, and that seemed like a really good idea at the time. And yeah, so I was sort of like my detour into restaurants, and it's a long way around talking about how I got into cheese, but it led me into cooking in other restaurants and fancier restaurants, and I got pretty good at it. I moved to Seattle from Bellingham to pursue more uh, opportunities working in restaurants and different types of restaurants. When I first moved to Seattle, I was working for Tom Douglas over at the Dahlia, and which is a very busy restaurant. That was probably the most volume I've ever seen happen in a place. I mean, man,
That's
you really
a hot
cooked.
restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was working there, and I came and I took a job working for Jim Drellman at Le Pichet, which is what I was really interested in. I wanted to work for Jim. I wanted to work at the Piche, and but they had like a part-time like garde role. It's like, this is what we have for you today. Can you hang out for a while? And so I was working there a couple days. I was working for Tom. I cut meat at a halal butcher down in the market for Shimsi down at Farrow's. And then I would like run deliveries. You remember when Cascadia was a thing down on First Avenue, the big fine dining restaurant? Sort of a
I don't think so. It might have been before my
uh,
my
all
time
right,
here.
fair enough. It was a landmark for a while, but I was just, like out there with a hand truck. I was cutting meat and then like running deliveries around like Belltown with a hand truck on my way to go to the other restaurant to work, kind of thing. And yeah, it was a good, rich experience, but really working for you know, Jim at Pichet was where I got in more engaged in cheese, and I ended up as his sous chef there and helping, manage the kitchen and lead that team when he went up to open Cafe Press up the hill. And I worked for Jim for
Rip. I miss Cafe Press. I love that place.
right, right. I do as well. Yeah, I'm happy for all the. I love the idea of Jim and Sheila hanging out in their apartment and their condo in France and not worrying about running restaurants all the time. It's
Absolutely. That was just
yeah.
my go-to, my easy
that's
go-to.
that's a win right there. But yeah, working for Jim was great, and one of the things that uh, did at the restaurant there is that I got to like do the Peterson order and do the DPI order and the Provisto order and wherever we were buying from, and I got to pick out all the cheese, and I thought it was super cool. And we had a like a lowboy cheese cooler, and the temp was adjusted so it wasn't too cold, that it beat the cheese up. And we would bring in a selection of mostly French cheeses and kind of keep an eye on things and be like, okay, this guy is ready to go next, And so on the soft ripened cheeses, we were kind of paying attention. I mean, that's not an environment where we could actively make the cheese better, right? But we could recognize where it was on its arc of its life cycle and try and select something. I guess we get like those. You get a wheel of Fougeroux and you stick your thumb in the side and it starts to feel like it's got a little pudding belly, and you're like, oh, okay, this one's it's gonna be messy, but it's gonna be a banger, And so we really tried to like pick. We'd serve 5 cheeses on our board at a time, and we tried to pick things that were interesting to our customers that we could afford to serve, because it's a nice restaurant, but it's not like a black tie sort of undertaking, and then
I
we
think it's
tried to
kind of
pick.
the classic like Pacific Northwest fine casual dining. Like
Yeah, yeah.
not like super fine dining, but like, you can still go in like jeans because you can go everywhere in
Yeah.
the Pacific
I
Northwest
mean,
in
that's
jeans.
true. It's like you're wearing your work Carhartts, it's like your fancy Carhartts that you wear for formal occasions.
Exactly, the nice
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, so we, so we got into picking out cheeses, and that was really kind of where I think cheese, and paying attention to cheese started for me, because it was just I was handling it every day, and the way our kitchen brigade was organized is those leadership roles in the kitchen were really looked after the detail things that were important. Like we looked after oysters, we looked after the steak tartare, we looked after the cheese board, and the house-made charcuterie. Like those were things that someone in that leadership role were taking care of, because they were details that were important to Jim, and had a certain vision about how it aligned with the concept of the restaurant and all of that. And so really paying attention to cheese started there for me. And yeah, it was a cool experience. I from there I worked up at Harvest Vine, and cooked with Joseba and the team up there, and a group of us from Harvest Vine went and helped Donna Moody open Marjorie again, when she was getting ready to reopen on Capitol Hill. And that was a fun experience. We helped, like I laid flooring in that restaurant, like we like sort of went from here's an idea and a concept, and a team came over and helped organize it. And um, you know, through all of these various restaurant stops, I had the same. I worked with Michelle Lasson, was the Peterson cheese rep that I took place orders with this whole time, and especially when I was working at Harvest Vine, and the team went over to Marjorie. The chef de cuisine I was working with was this guy, Kylan, who he had a real talent on the food side of things, but would just say these insane things to our cheese rep about, I want this, before Bayonne ham existed in the US. He's like, I need Bayonne ham tomorrow, and then Michelle would be like, well, Tyson, what does he really want? What exists today? What's the thing that he needs? And I'm like, all right, well, here's what we're gonna do. And I think not to pick on Kylan, but just being working with Michelle and taking whatever thing that the chef I was working with at the time had asked for, and turning it into an actionable item on their order guide, and so this is sort of my experience. And Michelle came and talked to me one day. I was like, hey, we're looking for someone who would go out and talk to uh, chefs. We want to grow our fine dining food service business in the Seattle metro area, and we want someone who understands what people need and can talk to them about it. Would you be interested in talking to us about the job? So that was how I got involved, mobbed up with the Peterson crew.
Wow, what an experience. See, this is why I love doing this podcast, because I had no idea about any of that stuff with you. So that's
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a long story, but you asked for it, like you sit down here and encourage me. But
that's
yeah,
the thing about podcasts, though, is literally people are listening in. So they want the whole story. We want to hear it
yeah.
all.
Well, it is fun. I feel like I mean, it's definitely a non-traditional path into the business side of things that I do, but definitely, I really like being able to talk to clients today and be like, all right, what are you trying to do? What's the goal here? What do you really need? And then be able to to know enough to help them get there, which is, I think that's the part that makes sales feel less salesy and more like you're helping somebody do something cool, and then they're happy and you're happy, and the person who sold the thing's
Absolutely.
happy. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So then how long were you at Peterson?
I worked for Peterson for right about 10 years. And I did a few different roles. The first job I did for Peterson was the cheese truck, which I guess not everyone has a cheese truck in their town, right?
No.
At the time,
Most
a
people
period of
don't.
time, we had two for a while, so how cool is that? But yeah, the cheese truck, if you're not familiar with the concept. So Peterson Cheese is a firm in the Pacific Northwest. It does local distribution, and that's really the roots of what they do. They import a lot of cheese and have a warehouse in New Jersey and move a bunch of cheese around. And the VP that I worked for was Francois Carrier-Tret. He's if you don't know Francois, you're really missing out. Yeah, he's the reason I went to work for that company and the reason I hung around for a decade. There are a lot of good things happening, but working for Francois was a special experience. And he lives in Maui now in a Sprinter van with like a deck and a hot tub built onto it, and it like Skypes my kids, and it's like, I found this cool lizard on my deck. Like, what's going on with that? And is just generally a beautiful human. But the cheese truck was sort of his project initially, and working for Peterson, sort of in the era where Jarlsberg was new and exciting, and trying to do more than merchandise Dutch cheese. And one of the big objections people had to the importing of French cheese. One, it smells bad in the warehouse. It's just going to stink the whole place up. And then two, nobody knows what it is. And so sort of the sales model, as I understand it at the time, is people went around with like a, dot matrix, like printer sheet with like cheeses listed on it that you could consolidate a range, and said, okay, this is expensive and you don't know what it is, and it'll be here in 8 weeks. How many do you want? And it really wasn't building the category at all. And so he pitched George Lydon, the big boss, and said, hey, let me bring in a pallet of cheese and I'll make sure it sells. He brought in a pallet of cheese, and I've got his original, like his early like Rungy orders around somewhere, but they were bringing in, it's like, we're going to bring in like 10 wheels of Delise de Bourgogne, and we're going to sell this cheese, and that one's funny just because, when I was working with him, we sold more than 10 wheels of that cheese at a time.
I'm like in an hour
Yeah.
practically at this point.
Yeah. But it was really, and it's just an energetic guy, and he loaded it all up in a work van and drove around to see chefs they knew, and it's like, hey, come look at what I got. And people would come out to his van and look at his cheese and then buy some, and he was just really making it up as he went along. And was it's not an incredibly efficient way to sell some cheese, but it was a great tool to build the market for the cheese he wanted to sell. And yeah.
And as a cheesemonger, I mean, I didn't get the Peterson truck because I was in Portland at the time. I was
Yep.
definitely getting the Provista truck because Provista also had
Yeah.
one at the time. But it was still pretty early on in my career, and just being able to go out and taste things that I had never had before, and like talk to, it was Tom Koyman who was
Yeah.
my cheese guy. We love
The
Tom
best. Yes.
he's the best. But just be able to talk to people who are knowledgeable about what the product was and to get that tasting time in, and you could buy directly off of the truck. So like you didn't have to wait
Yeah.
for it. It was just right there. And that it was really like, especially in that time period, a really fantastic way of getting knowledge.
No, I agree completely. And I mean, it's like that going to market experience of looking around. You see something, you're like, oh, I didn't even know this was a thing. Tell me about this, and I felt so cool. I had like a skinny trier, and I get to like pull out my trier and poke a hole in a piece of cheese, and we taste it together. But I was like, you gotta make sure you sell it once you poke a couple holes in it, because you can't just keep stabbing that guy, right? And so, um, it was a great way to teach people about the product we were trying to sell. It evolved since Francois' initial van. I mean, Provista had their truck in Portland, and we had our truck in Seattle, and I always had fun going. You've seen the red. Theirs was red, mine was blue at the time. And we see each other on the road. You're like kind of competing, but you're also like dealing with the same kinds of problems as well. And so it's pretty fun to be able to talk shop with someone else who possibly the only other person on the North American continent who has the same job description you do,
Right.
what's up with this, so that environment was pretty great. And for me, it was super educational too, because I mean, working for Francois was something else. And pretty hands off, like sink or swim approach. They hired me. He took me around. It was a box truck at this, so we had a refrigerated box truck, on a pretty short box, but on a pretty truck chassis. It was about as big as I could go without having a CDL, and it kind of had to like go find the equipment. It had been off the road because there hadn't been someone to run it, and so go find the equipment around the building to like scavenger hunt style, equip yourself a truck, and then put what he took me around the parking lot and said, "Here, do this," and
And now
Ed
go
was
drive through downtown Seattle.
yeah, and Ed Spangenberg was there, who's over at he's at
Ballard.
Metropolitan now, right? Yeah,
He's
or is
at
it
Ballard
PC?
PCC.
See, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I see him, but yeah. So Ed was the last person who had the cheese truck job, So he like taught me what he knew, and Dom was there who had done the cheese truck, and he taught me what he knew, and but it was sort of like scavenger hunt to like find out this information and equipment and drive around a little bit, so you're not going to hit anything, and then it was really like write an order for what you think you need on the truck, and so I wrote it and like, no, that's like half of what you need. And then added a bunch of stuff to it. And then it like handed me the keys and like, go away and don't come back until most of this is sold. And so, uh, yeah, there was stuff. The first time I tasted Cantaloupe, which was, I mean, it's a cheese I love, but I had no clue what it was, and I had 4 boxes of them, and it's the small form of Cantal, so it's the 20-pounder, which isn't like an easy sell, right? You got to find someone who's willing to take on a chunk of this cheese, and I didn't know what it was. Like I thought I knew a bunch about cheese working in restaurants, and it's like I know a bunch about like the cheeses that I've used in these restaurants, but like that's different than knowing a lot about cheese, right? And so I had to figure out how to sell this Cantaloupe before the rind degraded, and I found, shoot, who was it? I forget who saved my bacon on this one. It was a customer who was like, "Oh, you have Cantaloupe? I need one of those. Let me buy that." And then I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Here, let's taste it together." And then he told me what he liked about it. And then I got to go to the next person I saw and said, "Let me tell you about Cantaloupe. It's this cheese, and here's what you do with it, and here's why you should like it." And so, I didn't really have the option to self-select out of, my little French restaurant or Spanish Basque restaurant or, kind of thing. It was had to look at cheese in a broader lens and figure out how to represent that whole category. And that got, so I learned a lot from talking to the people who would jump on the truck and then everyone's excited to talk about cheese, right? Because it's
Yeah.
cheese, and like you're having a short positive interlude in the middle of someone's day. They get to leave their restaurant or step out of the store and jump in the back of a truck full of cheese and like snack on cheese and talk about why it's cool and then buy some. Like that's generally like, I mean, you got to really blow it for that to be an unpleasant interaction for anybody, right? And so people would tell me a ton of things about cheese, and when vendors would come in town, they'd want to ride on the cheese truck and meet customers. And so I'd load up a bunch of their cheese on the back, and we could drive around, and I got to hear from them firsthand how they sell their cheese and then tell those stories to the people. And, so it was really educational for me. And, we got to do some fun stuff, like when the punitive tariff on Roquefort, rolled back, So did you ever know Hervé Bourgeois, who worked for Papillon Roquefort? Uh,
I think I might have met him once or twice. Yeah, back in
a,
the
a
day.
great guy. Is very much a French sales guy, but in the best possible way, I guess. But it was great. Was the tariff was rolled back, and we stacked an entire pallet of Black Label Roquefort, like half wheels on the back of the truck. We just drove around Seattle, like selling them for half the price they were yesterday, and just getting everybody, wheels of Roquefort. And it's absolutely the best. Or, we have fun people come in, and people just, it's a different customer type interaction. So you get to, I don't know. I remember going around. I think I had Laure Dubelow from Hervé Mons and So from Jasper Hills were both in town and needed something to do, and so we drove around and we're selling cheese. And I mean, they're both like so good at selling their cheeses, and they have such great cheeses to sell. And I remember loading up some of these restaurants, being like, these guys aren't going to buy cheese from me in like in months. Like we're saying, these guys are buying like wheels of, large format Alpine wheels and things like that, just because it's the coolest cheese and they're, that kind of thing. But, it was a chance to really have a foundation in cheese and to understand the category better. And, for every like amazing, let's go and load Roquefort, there's also some like, hey, we're long on this. How do we manage the quality and mix, et cetera, et cetera. So I got to see cheese on good days and cheese on bad days and do some category management and, you know, suck it up and, have some conversations of like, yeah, this isn't, I know it's a lot of money, but we can't sell this, we
Right.
missed our window. We have to work on our system, not selling this piece of cheese, and yeah, so I was really a great way to learn a lot about selling cheese.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
also want to preface this too for anybody that's listening that like doesn't quite understand that this was also pre all information on the internet too. So like
Yeah.
when we kind of got started, there wasn't just this like flush of knowledge on the internet that you could just like look up what a cheese is and like that just wasn't really a thing until, even in the last, 10-ish years. But for a long time, for most of us in our careers, there's been a large lack of knowledge. So being able to have people on your truck who were the salespeople or the producers, that's like invaluable knowledge.
No, absolutely. That's a really good point too. I mean, even now in popular culture, there is more real detail about cheese, and in our professional culture, there's more resources for people to get these things. But it had definitely hasn't always been that way. And selling specialty cheese is different. Imported specialty, you know, you're selling cheese to someone who wants an experience or something special, or it's not just food, and it's imported and kind of out of context. So it's not, if you're in the Alps and you go to a store that only sells Beaufort and Comte, you're like, okay, which manufacturer, which age do I want, But if you're in Seattle and you're choosing out of 200 different cheeses from like, domestic and imported, like it could kind of be anything, right? And so you're having explaining why we picked something and why I think it's cool and why I think you should think it's cool, makes a big difference. And giving people who are talking to the cheese about the cheese table side or behind a case, or cutting to order at the service counter, like giving them tools to like talk about why this cheese is cool. It was pretty important to being able to keep selling it and keep supporting these producers that we think are cool and keep the
Yeah.
cheese moving and all that.
So after many years on the cheese truck, you kind of made your way up in Peterson and you ended up in national sales. Is that what you kind of
Yeah.
ended up
So
in?
yeah, I did work doing cheese truck, and I did category management of the cheese kind of specialty. So in addition to selling cheese myself, supporting our cheese team or sales team with finding a guy who can answer questions or know a lot about cheese, or get someone like, hey, I've got a hotel chef who wants to pick some new cheeses for their next set rotation. Let's figure some stuff out, or help, yeah, I got to work on some really cool business development projects. It went the way, I think COVID was maybe the death knell for this project. But the Tutabella, the restaurant chain in town, got to like talk Pecorino Romano with them. We got them using PDO Pecorino Romano on the shakers, on the table shakers for their cheese. They found an excellent piece of cheese and built a program with them for equipment to buy and wheels and cut eighths and pump it through the grinder. And they were using this just really lovely PDO Romano, and so just kind of being able to do that business development of how do we make a difference in your business? How do we help you understand, the options that are out there and pick something that works and build a program around it. Yeah, I really like that part of it is super fun to me. So I worked in category management on the cheese side. I helped build a charcuterie program, kind of look at the cured meats as a standalone category and kind of put some effort behind that. And it's pretty gratifying to, I think pretty gratifying to see what they're doing now, and kind of, I mean, some of the, I mean, it was like we were like buying like Ollie Salumeria and Creminelli and some of this, to bringing it in, having it for the first time, like driving across town to sell like 8 individual sticks of salami, because like, okay, we're trying to get this like program up and running, and bringing in Iberico products when those became available, and bringing in Bayonne hams when those became available, and kind of,
Finally, that guy got his
yeah,
Bayonne.
yeah, finally, right? It happened. So being able to work on some of those projects was great. And yeah, and then I ended up doing national sales. So I worked handling some big like national club store accounts, help support the team, working on those kinds of things, and then also did like regional, retailers. Like Wegmans and Central Markets and that kind of stuff. It was sort of, the club store, Costco stuff kind of keeps the lights on, and then the more specialty oriented retailers are, kind of, it's like I got to do some more in-depth business development type of projects and programs and stuff with them. So
Sweet. We love a
yeah.
well-rounded margin, right?
Yeah, yeah, you gotta. One thing that I have learned in the business, one thing that I believe from what I've learned in the business, you got to sell to the whole market. It's sometimes you see these, um, accounts where, they're great accounts, but like the Whole Foods cheese case, for example, right? Like Whole Foods is a great specialty cheese account, and they sell a lot of great cheese. And when you look at everyone who's ever sold a piece of cheese, like fighting to sell in their case, and it's important, and we need to do a good job with those kind of accounts. But I really don't think that replacing one piece of special cheese with another piece of special cheese in the Whole Foods specialty cheese case is as transformative to the market as figuring out how to reach somebody in a completely different market who isn't seeing that kind of cheese on a regular basis. We need both sides of it, but I think transformative in the market is selling more good cheese to more people, and or replacing like,
Quote him on that,
yeah,
friends. Quote
yeah,
him
like
on that.
we got to do the whole thing, we got to sell to everybody. We got to build a fundamental appetite. I don't know, it's funny. I remember talking to, I think it was the Pecorino Toscano PDO. And I was there in Tuscany. I was with Gabe, and we were just being irresponsible cheese youths around Europe and going to one of the food shows and having a great time. And talking to a PDO producer, and we were importing and selling their cheese in Seattle. And this guy, he wasn't very familiar with the U.S. market at all, and was really looking at it through the lens of their local market. But it was interesting talking to him about selling his cheese, because what he was most comfortable talking about, most interested in talking about, was like the points of difference for his cheese against the 9 other producers in the PDO, and why his is the best example. And I mean, it's great cheese. You had a valid point, but like your competition isn't the 9 other guys who make this cheese. It's reaching the world and giving people a reason why Pecorino Toscano PDO matters to them when they're looking at the global wealth of cheese that exists, you know.
Yeah, when you have a cheese case with 200 cheeses in it, why would someone choose a Pecorino Toscano over, you know, a Manchego, let's say?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, so just you know, and I think that's maybe where, you know, people on in the sales roles can add some insight and some, you know, value into the conversation too, is um I mean, I'm not good at making Pecorino Toscano at all. You know, I wouldn't trust me with that job. But I do have some good experience of figuring out how do we connect with people who are looking for these types of things, you know. And so to be able to be a bridge between someone who's really good at this and bridge to someone who's hungry for that, you know, is pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
I was like my favorite part of restaurants was not like the technical cooking bit. It was the like buying really good stuff and then getting it out to someone without messing it up. Like when I worked at the Harvest Vine, I was in charge of the fish cookery, and we get like Atlantic seafood. Like we get sardines flown in from the Bay of Biscay, and you know, whole true cod and these kinds of things. And you know, I was doing all this fish butchery. And sometimes it was really what was available, and you just have a little bit of something special. And being able to like say to someone, "Hey, I have," you know, and that kitchen is an open kitchen where we're, you know, right. I mean, you could reach over onto my cutting board if you didn't value your fingers, you know, and be able to tell someone, hey, I have something and it's special and I think you'd like it. Like, can I make this for you? And then just prepare it simply and put it in front of them and have them just like shine up because it's delicious. You know, it's like, well, that was like a big part of the why for me in that job. And that, in the cheese side of things, I had a lot of continuity with that of like, just go try and find what's best. I mean, with very few exceptions, the number of people that can make a piece of cheese better are pretty small, right? You know, most of us in the cheese business can aspire to not ruin a piece of cheese, right? That's and so but to be squared away and be able to packaging and transportation and all these things that aren't like the sexy part of cheese, but are an important part of getting it where it needs to go in a condition that the person who made it would recognize it, right? And then get it to someone without blowing it and be like, hey, I got this. It's super cool. Like, I think you'd like it. Would you like to try it? Is like yeah, I like that bit, you know.
So that's the key to cheesemongers out there. Just don't blow it. Just sell good
Yeah,
cheese and don't blow it.
when in doubt, like I think that you could use that as a good general guideline. Like when in doubt, just don't mess it up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So all of this kind of leads into, I feel like a lot of this experience leads into what you're doing now. So let's talk about Cascade Direct. Tell me all
Yeah.
about it.
Well, okay. So Cascade Direct. I'm a food broker, Janae.
Yeah, you are.
That's it. You know, it took me a while to get used to saying that out loud because, you know, I don't know if everyone listening to this has worked with food brokers in their career, but if you're going to pick on anyone, more, you know, in the business, food brokers, like we don't make anything. At least people like to beat up on distributors. What do distributors actually do? You know, they're just, we don't, who needs distributors? But they actually like move things around, you know, like, I'm as a broker, one of the reasons I was happy to be on your podcast is I learned early on. Someone taught me in my role as a broker is like you gotta call people up and remind them what you do for them because otherwise people forget. Like unless you tell them what you do, like it's not you're not making it, you're not buying it, you're just sort of making sure everything works in a lot of ways. So
Well, and they're also
um,
seeing the money coming out of, their,
yeah, there's
you know, there's
a
a
cost to
cost to
having a
it. So they
Tyson
see
in your
that money
life.
going out.
Yeah,
So they're like, what is the return on this, And
yeah,
there are a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
not so great brokers out there also. So people
There
have
is
experiences.
a wildly variable level of what bro. And I mean, there are some wonderfully respected professionals
Absolutely.
in the business, and there are also some people out there walking around with a broker badge at you know, fancy food. We're like, oh, I just want to make sure people know I'm not one of those brokers, you know. So so Cascade Direct is I mentioned at the top, mom and pop shop. So it's me and Sarah, and We do brokerage, and then more that we're not really a traditional brokerage model. We do brokerage, we do sales agency, we do business development. We've done some light duty consulting work, but it's really all based around e-commerce and direct to consumer sales. And We do that kind of, I guess our model is really we help people who want to be in that business and aren't, which is a lot of traditional family-owned food manufacturing businesses, and we help close the gap. And so we do a lot of different things for different people. There's some people who need us to do a little bit for them, and we do that. And there's some people that we do. I mean, we can arrange trucks and logistics, and I make labels for people every week, pallet tags and things of that nature. So we kind of do everything from like initial like business development, ideation, fundamental sales work, through orders, production planning. A lot of the business that we do is based around gifting, and people. We supply a lot of people who build gift baskets and meal kits and those, so wine gifts and those kinds of things, and kind of bridge to from the specialty producers and perishable to the people who are really good at building, assembling, shipping on the fulfillment side of things. And so, there are some things of we have a lot of customers that we work with who don't they don't need some cheese every week. They need 9 truckloads in a row starting on this date and delivering no later than that date, kind of thing. And so it's kind of unusual stuff that doesn't fit neatly into existing retail or food service distribution models. And frankly, it's kind of niche in that I think a lot of the producers we work with are interested in going after this business, but it's not big enough for them to like put someone on the category, but if we handle it for a bunch of people, then it kind of makes sense. So
I just want
yeah.
to, for people who may not have ever dealt with food brokers, a lot of times, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I've dealt with some in the past, but most of the time, the model for a food broker is to really like kind of get the product into, say like big accounts, like, when I worked for Quince and Apple, we worked with brokers that were getting us into Kroger, into, all of the major chains and trying to open up new avenues for sales on
Mhm.
that end. So I just want to make sure, like, for people who
That's a
haven't dealt with them before, like to kind of see what the difference of what you guys are doing versus what a traditional broker is doing.
Yeah, no, that's a really thank you for that. That's when you're used to looking at something this close all the time and you're not very good at stepping back. So yeah, I mean, probably the most classic model of a broker would be like a retail oriented broker who has a specific region, like a geographical region that they sell to. And if I want to sell this type of product in this region, I go talk to this brokerage and they have all the contacts and systems built up to help make this work, is kind of the classic model. And we're really not geographically oriented at all. We represent manufacturers to a very specific window of the trade, and um, have some great contacts and relationships and things built up there. We also have done some like from scratch, like business development things with people of like, hey, I'm interested in doing this kind of thing, and I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. Like, do you know? I'm like, well, I don't know who does that, but I know. Well, okay, let's work on this. And so then we dig into it, and so you kind of do. I don't know. Maybe I'm like a sales guy. You only have to pay when I sell something, It's like but we do a wide variety of different kinds of things. But it's all kind of based on that agency model. We get paid by vendors for selling their product out into the market. So,
And you're working usually on with multiple clients at the same time, like a traditional food broker also, like.
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
your
we work.
lineup.
Yeah, we represent about 25 different manufacturers at this point, and then yeah, we've got about a half dozen different channels that we work with on different projects, and a lot of what we do is less about like going to manufacturer and saying, "Hey, if you want to sell your line, it goes through us, and we'll sell everything you make." And it's more of, "Hey, I've got someone that I think would be a really good fit for this thing that you do. Are you interested in going after the business together?" And then we, do that for them in a very specific, just that specific part of the channel.
What made you want to go out on your own and like do start your own business essentially?
Yeah, well, okay. I got to be really upfront about something. Because we didn't start from scratch. Have we had this conversation?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, when I was at Peterson, I did a big business development project with a broker. Her name is Sue Marceau, and I don't know if you're acquainted with Sue at all. Her family was the original force behind Ness and Company, which was a Seattle area deli distributor that later became Eurobest, became DPI.
Okay, yeah.
Um, through that whole line of things, that was her family business. But Sue is an outstanding food professional who's been in grocery and deli and specialty in various roles. Was Worked for David down at Rogue and helped develop the sales map for Rogue when they're getting that business up off the ground, and just really solid cheese professional. And She had started the gift side of things. Like, she started packing. They were like buying product and packing gift baskets in and then quickly realized that it was a lot better to sell product to people who wanted to pack gift baskets than be the packer of gift baskets yourself. And so I had um, built this business up based around gifting and e-commerce, and this home delivery gifting, food model, working with people who are specializing in that space. And she and I worked together. As at Peterson, we worked together on this business development project of someone who was like, "Hey, we're good at wine, we're good at this other stuff we do. We don't know how cheese works, but let's build a thing." And so we did this project from the ground up together, and just worked together a ton on this business development thing, and really felt like we saw eye to eye in terms of like how you take care of people, and just sort of how that all works. We really clicked in that regard, and kind of had the conversation of, "Hey, I'm getting ready to retire. What do you think?" So, "Oh, that sounds cool. Let me figure it out." But I mean, it's pretty big change. I've been at Peterson for a long time, was established there, and you know, for when I was working in restaurants, I mean, Sarah always had like the serious jobs, like the real career and stuff. And her career is in nonprofit management and development, and she's had some big jobs and contributed to the society as a whole and all of these things. And I was like, you know, cooking in restaurants and saying the F word and throwing pans
You
and
just get
things
to
or
be the
whatever.
artist.
Yeah. Right. So it was assumed if anyone had a serious job, it would be her, and I'd figure out how to fill in, the rest of it. And then at some point, we kind of flip flopped on that, and we've got two kids. They're so cool, and a little bummed because I was always going to be the one who got to like stay home, and then turns out that she's also really good at that part of things, and so um, yeah, so it was kind of unexpected, but I ended up working. I was in national sales at Peterson. I was traveling a lot and doing all this stuff, and um, Sarah wasn't working outside of the home, and was keeping the wheels on the bus here when I was on the road, and doing all of that. And so making a change to self-employment when like my income was the whole thing, is definitely like, oh, okay, I
It's
got
a
to make sure
scary
we do this.
jump.
Yeah, I got to make sure we do this right, but was kind of talking with Sue and like, I mean, the big advantage, right? Like I caught myself, I was saying to someone that I was like, you could do what I do, like there's options out there. And I was like, fully recognizing the privilege that I have here of an absolutely solid start in this business based on someone else's decade of work in it as well. So I mean that was really what made the jump possible. And the brokerage model is really interesting because the business, it is inherently valuable, but there's no tangible assets. There isn't employees or I mean, even really long-term contracts. It's all just goodwill. It's goodwill and continuity and all of this. It's not something you can go like get a bank loan for goodwill in a food brokerage. And so yeah, I was kind of talking to Sue and trying to figure out how this might work. And then that was the end of 19 and the beginning of 20, and we're kind of trying to figure out how one might make such a thing happen. And things got weird kind of spring of 20-ish,
A little bit.
a
A
little,
little.
yeah, a little weird. And so it's like, all right, let's everyone pump the brakes, we'll see what's happening here. And came back to it a year later and we're like, well, turns out home delivery, direct to consumer, e-com, like that's not I mean, there's more demand for those kind of services than there ever had been. And there were a lot of, the fundamental appetite for these foods existed, but the way people were getting them had really been disrupted. And, talking to a lot of people who are like, I have X number of cows putting out X amount of milk for X amount of weeks. I got to do something with it. And so being able to talk to people and help them find these avenues, and it was kind of a crazy time to just be making major life changes, but it was also sort of like, oh, we're already in like wild free fall and nothing's real anyways. Like maybe I can help somebody keep their cows. Let's go. So we made the change sort of mid peak COVID impact to the world, and
I
yeah.
would say we're still in that because, the fact that labor is impossible
Yeah,
because so many people are still
no,
getting sick constantly. And let's
that's
say
a
we're
good point.
economy
As soon as
isn't,
I
yeah.
no, sorry to interrupt. I just meant to say as soon as I said peak, I just wanted to reach over like my desk because I mean it was really, I guess it was a point in time where the majority of people here in US Americans, like their daily life was very different than it had been in terms
Yes,
of how people were eating. It was a big part of that, right?
absolutely.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and so there's definitely some opportunity based there. I mean, the mail order segment, we had 2 years of just this unprecedented growth, and then man, there's some tough year over numbers to comp against when everything's open again. And get people being like, well, we've grown, you know, this much every year. This is happening forever, right? And you're like, well, fortunately not. But it is. The market got a little more rational, but then you're right. I mean, we've looked at some very real challenges, like just disruption in the labor side of things, the is stuff that like you don't think about at the time, and then you hear it and it makes sense. So like, well, we're short on 2-year-old cheddar. What was happening 2 years ago? Oh yeah, that's right. No one's making a lot of cheddar. So it's,
Yeah.
those types of things, and so kind of navigating, so some opportunity there too, just kind of navigate those systems, and so we do a lot of problem solving for even just how do you get stuff, who can make it, who has capacity, how can it be made, and I mean it's sometimes problematic, but that's the part I like is the like, like, okay, we want to do some cool thing. It's like, okay, well, I know someone who does that, and let's talk to them and we'll see this. And, I mean, it's like help someone develop a private label cheese that's, made and selected for them, and or helping somebody, you know, who has one store figure out how to do it in metropolitan areas on two coasts, and things like that, and just some of the bit of how to build and scale and all of that is super interesting and it's fun to work on.
Just this is it, folks. This is where your cheese life can lead you is some really
Yeah,
interesting and far-flung places, right?
no, that's right. So I guess so. One of the reasons I was excited to chat with Janae today and to do this is because um, I like being able to talk to people in the industry about what I do, and no one ever talked to me and was like, "Hey Tyson, this is what you should do with your life." Most of like if you made it this far, like the common thread is like it seemed like a good idea at the time, and so we gave it a try. That's one of the cool things about self-employment is you get a lot of opportunities to try things and get feedback and do more of what works. Like one of the things I think that's really cool about my job today is it's whatever I can convince someone else to pay me to do. Like whatever someone else sees enough value in that, like, yeah, hey Tyson, knock yourself out, right? And so um, being able to uh, try a lot of things, and I mean, I try a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, but like really, what I'm out is my expertise, my time and energy, and so just putting time and energy into stuff that makes sense to me because I believe in it, is pretty cool. Um,
I
yeah,
agree
every once in a
there.
while,
That's my
some
entire life.
yeah. Well, that's why it's fun to talk to you and you and Tom and like I feel like who else is in our graduating class of life? Gentry Bear, like the people who just were all sort of on one side or the other of this, like cheese is a retail item across the service counter, and then look at where everyone has ended up being different roles and different ways that people find a workable and meaningful career in the business. And you know, I, I think there are a lot of paths out there to having a good job, and I recognize just being able to say. I mean, it took me a solid decade of being established in one particular niche to feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm going to take this portion of it that I like, and with um, support spin it off into something that can stand on its own feet. So it's not an easy jump by any like stretch of the imagination, but um I think it's easier to make the job you'd like to have in the food business is a lot easier than like investment banking or like somebody like we what I mean, like so much of what we do is based on knowledge and taste and relationships and ability to understand what people need and help them accomplish it and understand the business, um, navigate the regulatory environment, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of different ways to carve it out. And that's what I thought was cool in working in restaurants, right? Like if you were pretty good at it, you could be in charge of it. And it wasn't necessarily based on seniority. It was like if you could keep up and make sure everyone else kept up, then you're gonna be running the show sooner or later, right? And you got to kind of make it into what you wanted it. And I feel like cheese kind of has an element of that too. You get to there are opportunities out there to make it into what you want it to be. So.
I wholeheartedly agree. Sometimes it's not by choice. Sometimes we have to make our own path, but we just do it.
Absolutely.
That's how,
Absolutely.
that's how I live my life. I'm like, well, this is my option. Sink or swim, basically, sink or swim.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm gonna
Here's the
swim.
keys. Yeah, don't come back till you've sold most of this.
I might float a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not always active swimming, but
Yep. Yep. Well, I would say though, and my other plug for self-employment is being able to define success, right? Because there are times where floating is what needs to be done, and you know, I mean, something I've learned. Sarah and I both working together, and we're dating each other. We're roommates. we're co-parenting, we're co-workers. Uh, we're drawing a lot out of the same bucket sometimes, and sometimes it's great because we really see eye to eye with each other, and sometimes it's challenging because if there's a lot demanded in one place, like it's not like anyone can like take the day off and help the family do something, right? Like it's we have some fewer tools in that arena, but being able to say the most important thing to us this month is doing this, right? When have some ability. It's not we're not necessarily saying this needs to be I think we need to meet our goals for the year, and we need to take care of our clients, and we need to, like all those sort of things. But you have some flexibility in the commitments you take on, and how you choose to address it, where you put the priorities. And my goal isn't to like build some company that is like an asset we're going to sell. Like the goal is to like have a cool job that I like doing, and have my day, have my work week be something I'm excited about, and like go upstairs and like nerd out and have lunch with my kids. And so that part of it's pretty cool.
Yeah. What do you see on the horizon for Cascade Direct? What do you
Mm,
just keep going and
Man,
like you are, or gonna build and build? Well, you just
well,
said you're
I
not,
think
but
yeah. I mean, every once in a while, I think about like if I could, um we could grow the business. There's opportunity out there. You field X number of calls of people being like, hey, you're in the Northwest and do brokerage. We need a this. You're like, well, we don't really do that specific thing, but we could. Um, I think the non-traditional retail model has some legs and to it, and finding other ways to explore that space. We're, have had some conversations recently with people who are saying, hey, we're just not really happy with our overall approach to e-commerce. Like, could you help us do this part better? And so maybe stepping back from the immediate brokerage part of it and looking at it more on the B2B marketing strategy, go to market, that side of things. And, you know, um, as well as the ability to help them make the plan and then do the plan. But looking at it through that lens. So, talking to a famous chef about how to help them build their e-commerce brand in a better way, and um, some of those sort of things that are a little different than our core day to day, but align with, I think, things that we've gotten pretty good at. So,
sweet.
yeah,
Well, I have a few questions that I always ask people at the end of the podcast. It's kind of my quick round. Are you ready?
hit me.
What's your current cheese crush?
Oh, I've got a piece of Comte upstairs that's so good. Yeah.
Delicious. Classic.
Yeah, you know what? It is, I can always go back to that well. That's been like my favorite piece of cheese for years. And I love that it's got a lot of depth to it across affineurs and across age profiles and from wheel to wheel and season to season. Yeah, a
It's
lot to get
always
excited
good.
about.
Yeah, it's always good. What's your favorite pairing? Just across the board. What's your go-to?
Ooh, uh, all right. Well, this isn't my pairing, but it's really good. The ladies down at Point Reyes sent me a little box the other day that had some of their toma with the togarashi spice,
Hmm.
and they had it's like 70 something percent, like a real like a nice dark chocolate, and little crunchy salty nori sheets, and it was just absolutely delightful. I mean, there's a lot going on there, but it was like a sweet and a savory kind of pairing to the
Creamy,
tomarashi.
salty, savory, spiced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a funny one for me because normally cheese with stuff in it. Like I'm cooler than that. But when it works, it slaps. So yeah, I was very into that.
Yeah, when it's well done, you can't deny it. Your best cheese memory. Doesn't necessarily have to be a cheese you ate, but it could be time you spent with people in a certain area around cheese with cheese
Ooh.
people. You've had a lot, so
I was gonna say this is a situation where I just feel incredibly fortunate to have to sort through some of the things. Um, so I had dinner with Michael Mathieu and Hervé Mons at Hervé's house, and it was like the day started with going to the little public market down in town and like buying a couple big chops and some vegetables. And Michael's a very proficient chef and making dinner and pulling, I think Irvis, Tyson, you need an education. And so started like taking bottles of wine out of, the like the other room downstairs. And we had it was a 30 something month piece of Comté that it was sort of like, I don't usually like taking them out this far, but this one held up. And it had been aged in the tunnel, and he had a wedge of it in his fridge, and we buttered it and ate it. And it was, I mean, the context and the meal and the hospitality. And I'm not saying that cheese is why I fell asleep in his hot tub like that night, but
that was
there were
probably the
contributing
wine.
factors. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that could have been a factor too. It was an education for baby Tyson at that point, all around. But that was a really special piece of cheese. And um, the just the memory attached to it, just the hospitality. I mean, people have been so kind to me over the years in cheese. And the people, I had someone was asking like, do you miss like not the like Fort Worth part of the travel, but like the Florence part of the travel, And I was like, well, yeah, kind of. I mean, it's cool to have that opportunity. I never traveled outside of North America until I did it until I went to France for work. I was kind of learned everything by doing it in the context of cheese. And um, the so having had a chance to do that was a great opportunity. It's also, I mean, it's a lot of work. We're not, you're not there to play. And so it can be pretty taxing on that end. But I know someone was asking me, do you miss the Florence part of the traveling? And I was like, not so much the work part of it, but I would like to go. Like, I'd like to ditch the kids, take Sarah, and go to some of these places that I went through quickly. And just like say hi, it's just like say hi and thank you to these people, and like that. Yeah, I mean that part of it is pretty amazing, I remember standing around uh, at a Cellairs producer on this like the high Auvergne plateau, and they got the big, the Cellairs cows are the big brown hairy ones with horns and the big bells. And I mean, it's like, does everyone know the story? Everyone know the story about you can only milk a Cellairs cow in the field with their calf, and they won't let the milk go unless the calf starts the process. So the people collecting the milk, they go out with wooden buckets, and they're wearing a stool, which is like on a belt, and it's just one leg of a stool. And they bring the calf up to the cow and like get the milk going, and then tell the calf to kick rocks and give it a grain ration and milk the cow in the field, and then bring the milk up in these wood buckets into wood vats and make these wheels of like like traditional Cellairs. And there's a handful of people that do it. And it's a place like I feel so fortunate to have been there, because you wouldn't ever go there like unless you were born there, or you were coming through on a mission of cheese, or sometimes a Tour de France rolls through there. You could see people ride bikes. So it's there's some elevation gain. But up on this Auvergne plateau, and even where we were, the guys who live up there go up during the season and they come down and live in the village, during the winter. And we're standing around. Someone had homemade, dried sausage, like in a glass, like mason jar kind of thing, and broke it out. And the pigs were eating whey that contributed to the sausage project, and the Cellairs cows were out, and the sun was shining. and we were visiting this farmer. It was an old guy, and there was a young guy from Switzerland that had come to learn about Cellaire's cows because he was as part of his like professional formation in cheese. So he was the apprentice, and he was like, hey, no shit, yodeling, and the guy whose place we were at, like he was like buddies from like the village, like all came to. We heard there were like people from Seattle came to look at our cows, and they're just like, we just want these. This is so weird. We just want to see what's going on, and we all stood around in a circle, like eating like little pieces of cheese and sausage, and soaking in the sunshine, and looking at this pastoral scene. And that's like a richness of experience and travel that you don't get. I don't think you could do that on purpose. You know what I mean? Like you kind of you end up there sort of sideways, and then you just got to make sure you're able to enjoy it when it happens, right?
Absolutely. I think that's just cheese as a whole. You get there sideways.
Yeah,
You just got to figure
right.
out how to enjoy it.
Well put. That's accurate.
So where can people find you?
Ooh, it's my downstairs office, and it's rad. I know the background's blurred, but I got a bunch of guitars back there if anyone wants to jam. Cascade-direct.com is our website, and that has contact deets, and that's the professional contact side of things. And it rings through to my cell, so just light me up, guys. And then I have an Instagram handle, which is Cheese Truckin', and that is mostly photographs of my dog,
Biking.
bike racing,
Yeah.
and my kids making a guess. So I had someone ask me, like, why are there more pictures of your dog than your kids? Sort of like what's up with the ratio here? And I ask the kids. We're super excited about the whole like consent side of things. So they don't always agree to star in my instas, but
the dogs don't have a choice, they don't get consent.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, she's pretty down, like she knows she's beautiful, and a big part of her day is meeting people who tell her she's beautiful and special ladies. So like I feel like the Grams aligns with that. But that's my personal @ and if that's the whole story right there. So
well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel like I got a little bit of Seattle history, food history in this conversation too. It's fantastic.
Yeah. You never think of yourself as being historical, but you stay at it long enough, and I guess it happens, right? No, thank you for the opportunity, and for everyone who joined. And the cool thing about cheese is how excited people are talking about it, right? And it kind of makes the whole business side of things fun. So thank you.
Tyson is one of my favorite people to sit around and giggle with. His curiosity and willingness to search for the answers with his humble demeanor make him an asset in business and friendship. Thanks for coming on to tell your story, Tyson. This podcast is recorded, produced, and edited by me, Janae Muha. Musical credits to my husband, Ben. If you want to continue the conversation, find me on Instagram or Facebook. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite listening platforms so more people can find this podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep spreading the word of good curd.